One of the great things about a LeMoyne Star is that you can make it any size that you wish, depending on what size the block you start with. We're going to be making this size today. It's going to finish at a 16.5 by 16.5 if you follow my measurements, but you can make it so many different ways. I love to make the LeMoyne Star. I made this starting with just a charm pack, which is a 5 by 5 square, and I made this tiny little one. And then this one that I have hanging on my wall, I started with a layer cake, which is 10 inches by 10 inches. So it doesn't matter what size that you would like to make it. It's totally up to your creative juices and how you would like to do it. And you can even incorporate bigger and smaller in the same quilt, as long as you get whatever this is, half that square, half that size for the square, so you can still make up a square. So hang out with me. Let's talk about the LeMoyne Star. And this is the one we're going to be making today, the super easy, beginner friendly way. Welcome back, and let's craft. Okay, here are 3 fat quarters. This is going to be our main fabric 1, main fabric 2, and we're going to use this for our background fabric. We're going to do the easy way of getting the LeMoyne Star cut, sewn, and put together so very quickly. So out of this main fabric 1, we are going to need 2 squares at 7 by 7, 2 squares of 7 by 7, 2 squares of 7 by 7, and then we're going to need additional 4 squares from the background at 4.5 by 4.5. So those measurements will be on your screen. This is to make 1 block, and we're going to do it, of course, you know, I'm a lazy cutter, so we're going to do it the easy way. So we're going to take these 2 out of our way, and then this is the long side of the fat quarter. I'm just going to fold that in half so I can cut 2 at one time. I'm going to put the fold on just a line on my cutting board, just so I can square off the edge here. And I'm just lining up my ruler on a line here on the cutting board so I get a straight edge. And you guys, this rotary cutter, it's a little bit more on the expensive side, but it's made of complete metal, and I love it because if I'm doing a lot of layers and I'm pushing it through, it does not give in any way. I think I just looked it up on Amazon, Creative Grids. So we've got our nice edge there. And now I should have just put that on a hole mark. Okay, there we go. And we want a 7-inch from here to here. So let's count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. I'm going to put it on that 7 line. And we're going to straighten it up from here to here. We're going to count again to make sure we didn't make a mistake. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Always measure twice, cut once. Okay. And then I'm going to turn this to the side. Again, line it up so we can square this edge. Just going to line it up on that line right there. Now it's folded right here from where we folded it. And this ruler is a 6.5-inch ruler. So I know if I'm looking, it's going to be right here that we're going to be going to. But again, we're always going to count again. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And then we're going to cut these 2 that we need. And the reason I do it this way instead of, because if you cut with leaving the fold, you always end up with a bigger piece that you can use for something later. And you never know what we could make with this. So we have those two. We'll just set this all to the side. So now we have those two. We'll set those aside. And we're going to do the same thing with our fabric number 2. Again, long side. I'm going to fold it up. Make a nice crease that we can use on one of the lines to square up our sides. And let's put it right here on the 10. How about that? We're going to take that little bit off to give us a nice square side. We're going to move over 7. So let's count it. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7 would be right here at this line. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. I'm going to cut that. Move that out of the way. We're going to turn it again so we can square up. I've got this on the line here. So we can take off that little bit of an edge right there to make sure we're nice and square. And remember, 6.5 inch. I know this is the line that we're going to be going to. I'm going to straighten that up. Still going to count again. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. For each of these little 4 blocks, that is an inch. Cut that. Then we have this bigger piece left because we left it from the fold. I'm going to put this over to the side. And now we have the 2 pieces that we need from the other main fabric. We're going to put that right there. And we're going to do it again with our background fabric. And there's our 2 background fabrics. But remember, we need a little bit more of this one. So we're going to bring this back, and we've still got it where our side is squared up. So we're going to use that to our advantage. And this time we need a 4.5 inch strip. So we're going to cut 1, 2, 3, 4 and the half line. We're going to line it up from top to bottom. And we're going to cut that like we always do. Get that out of the way. Turn this then to the side, right here. And we're going to use this line to square up our edge. Now, I'm going to turn this around and do it by using this roller and not the lines on the board. So if I turn this around, since this is 6.5 across, if I use this half side, if you watch Clay's, how to make Clay's block, you would have seen me do this. So if I use 1, 2, 3, 4.5, and I've got all of my sides nice and lined up, we can cut one here, pull that out, and then we're going to go for 4.5. Oh, it's not going to make it that way. That's okay. I'm going to open this up. We're going to get us one more from this strip piece. There's 4.5. And see, we just don't have enough left out of that piece. So we're gonna bring back our other fabric. And again, we're gonna use our straight side, line it up at 4.5. Whenever I'm going to make a bigger project from a specific quilt square, I will always grab some of my extra pieces and make the block first, instead of just going and buying everything I need to make a whole quilt out of that block. Because I want to run a test. I want to see how I want to end up putting it together, how I'm going to cut everything, all of those things, and see if there's anything that I'm going to need to change up along the way. And just because we're here, I'm going to just cut another one so that on the scraps and the extras I still have a 4.5-inch block that I'm going to put in my stash as 4.5. Okay. All right. These we're going to use later for our corners, so we're going to put those to the side. Now what we're going to do is figure out what we need to do. So when we take our squares that we have, okay, here's our main fabric 1, our main fabric 2. We are going to take these 2 squares and we're going to put them right sides together like this. Right sides together like this. And then these 2 that we have left, we're going to put those right sides together. And we're going to draw an X from this side, from one corner to the other corner. And then we're going to draw an X this way. The LeMoyne Star is actually my most favorite quilt block ever. I just love the way it looks. And depending on what kind of fabric you use and what the color coordinating is, it can look so different. Just gonna grab a couple of pins just to keep these blocks together when we're moving them around and going to the sewing machine. Okay, one more. Okay, here are our blocks ready to go. And what we're going to do when we get to the sewing machine is we're going to do a 1/4 inch seam all the way around the outside edge, from here to here to here to here. And what I like to do is I just run off the edge, start the next one, run off the edge, start the next one, run off the edge, start the next one, run off the edge. So we're going to hop over to the sewing machine and we're going to sew around all 3 of these little squares that we have put together. Okay, today we are sewing on my vintage Singer 401A. Her name is Miss Lou. She was named after the lady who had her forever. When I got her from Facebook Marketplace, I took her apart, redid her, and she sews like a dream. So we're going to start on one end. I've got my stitch length at a 8 on this vintage sewing machine. And we're going to just move all the way around. This is a 1/4 inch foot, so if I keep my fabric just on the edge, it will sew the perfect 1/4 inch foot. I mean 1/4 inch seam. I'm just gonna let it run off the edge. I'm gonna pick it up, flip it around, and keep sewing. A little wobbly on that one. That's okay. And then we're going to keep going. And that is one done. Sewn all the way around. I'm going to go ahead and finish these two, and I'll fast forward through that, and we'll meet back at the cutting table. Okay, here we are back at the cutting table. I got a little off on this one, but it'll be okay because we're going to square them up anyways. So what we're going to do now is we're just going to cut on that line that we drew earlier. And as you see, when we take these apart, we will have half square triangles. Let's go ahead and cut the rest of those. Now, I'm going to run over to the ironing board and just iron these open, and then I'll be right back. Okay guys, I have got these all ironed, and we need to square them up to be 4.5. Hey guys, I wanted to add a little insert here because I thought of something when I was editing the video. If you are squaring your blocks and you cannot get a 4.5 inch square out of that, it's okay. If you can do a 4 1/4, or maybe you can do a 4, because when we started with that 7-inch block, if you're off by your 1/4 inch seam, it won't allow you to have enough to square it 4.5. So 4 1/4, 4. The only thing that you're going to have to change is those 4 squares that we made extra from the background. You want to make sure that you cut those to whatever you squared your half square triangles to. So if you squared them to 4, then you're going to need to go back and cut those 4.5 inch squares to 4 inch squares, and then just continue on. It's fine. Keep going. We're all learning. Now I'm going to show you this block lock ruler because I love to use this one, but we are still going to square with a regular quilt ruler because this is all about beginners and you may not have these things. So, but I just wanted to show you real quickly. This has a groove down the center. And if you iron to the dark side, the block lock logo will be on your light fabric, and see how it locks into that. So all I have to do is from the one on either corner is I'm going to get a nice square edge first, right? So I'd only be taking off this. And then I'm going to turn it around. I'm going to pull down till I get to the 4.5 mark. Which is right here and right here. So it's pretty close already. But I have a little extra right there. So I want to fix that. Can you see how it's coming off on that one side? So I'm going to go back here. Now I've got a very straight 4.5 and 4.5. And I can move this, but you see this little bit that's hanging out on either side? It's just a tad, but if we don't get rid of that, it's gonna mess with our block being square. There we go. And now we have a perfect 4.5 by 4.5, which is now going to be the same as our 4.5 inch blocks that we cut earlier. So block lock. I love this roller, but we're going to square, which is a regular quilt roller, because that's what we do, because you probably don't have. Remember, we want to get the 1 inch and the 1 inch at the corner that we're going to work with. First, we're just going to straighten, take off the tab on one side, just like we did when we did the Clay's Choice block. So we have a good starting spot. I'm going to turn this to the down. Our 1 and our 1 is right here. We are going to keep the center line to make sure it stays on our seam line, because that's what's going to give us the perfect square. And then we are going to move until we're at the 4.5. But see, I already know we're going to have to trim this one a little bit more. So let's go ahead and get rid of this. Let's turn it around this way, because it seems like that's the side we were having some issues with. Yep, right there. So see, we're at 4.5, 4.5, and again, we just have a little bit peeking out. We want to trim those all nice and neat. Because we want to be very precise when our blocks go together. So you don't need to watch me do all of them. So I'm going to do one more for you, and then I'm going to fast forward through all the rest of them. Again, we're looking for the 4.5, we're looking for the 4.5. And because this is where the 4.5, I don't want to make an adjustment yet here, because I want to keep that. We're going to turn it around and make sure it's square at the end. So this one, we're going to take just that little bit off, like that. And then again, we're going to turn it, make sure our line stays on our seam, go to our 4.5 mark, and our 4.5 again. There we go, keeping it nice and straight on the 4.5 and the 4.5. And then we're gonna trim off whatever is there. There we go. Okay guys, we're back and we have squared all the blocks, and now it's time to put it together. And it goes together so very easy. The first blocks that we're going to start with are the two colors together. So we're going to start on the center, and we want to make a pinwheel. So we're going to do the darker and the colored, the darker and the colored, darker and the colored, and the darker and the colored. And see how that already makes us a pinwheel. So we should have all the seams coming here to the center. Okay, doesn't that look really cool already? And then we're going to match up the rest of the leg to the corresponding leg. So here we're going to have the background color coming in. We're going to have the background color coming in, background color coming in, background color coming in, background color coming in. Are you seeing all of that? Let me just make sure you can see the whole block. Background color coming in, and then background color. Isn't that beautiful? And now this is where those 4.5-inch triangles came in. They're going to sit in each corner. Okay, and then we're going to do what we do. We're going to sew all the rows together like this. We're going to sew down, and that is our LeMoyne Star. So I'm going to go back to the sewing machine and get this sewn together, and we're going to talk about what you thought about this one. Did you think it was pretty easy the way it went together? It looks very, very difficult. But if you know the tricks on how to get the squares instead of just going, you know, and cutting a half square triangle and a half square triangle and getting those together and doing that each time, it makes it so much easier to do it this way. So let's hop over to the sewing machine and get this block together. I'm just gonna grab 2 and fold them together like that. Gonna keep my seams going to the dark side. And I'm just gonna grab the next 2 and put them together. You guys, when you're getting ready to do something, and you can pin these together before you bring them to the sewing machine, but just make sure that both sides are even, because it makes a difference if you start with everything kind of lined up the way it should be. And we're just going to chain piece these 2 together, making sure we're coming out right on our point there. Then we're going to fold this back. And fold this back. And we already know that when we put the row together, our points need to come down like this, right? And I am off on this one. Yeah, that's too much off for me. I'm gonna have to grab my Jack, Mr. Jack, that we spend so much time together, and I'm gonna pull this seam. It's super easy. About every 4th stitch, I'm just gonna pull through. I always told my kids we learn the most when we make a mistake and we have to correct it, because then we won't be afraid of anything, right? So I'm just gonna pull the stitches on this. And then when I pull it apart, it's just gonna come apart like that. And we're gonna put this back together. A little better than we did the first time. It's amazing how that little itty bitty slip will put it so far off, and I just cannot leave it alone. Okay, that's much better. Your seam is much better. Okay, and again, this is our top row, so we know we want these colors coming in. So now I'm just gonna sew these 2 together. Now when we come down here, there is a point that needs to match. And I like to start right there when I'm sewing, because I want them to be so on point. So let's get them nice and straight. And again, you can pin this. We're going to put our needle down right on top of that. And we're going to go from there. There we go. So one row together like that. And see how this is the point. See how they come together. It's so important when we're making a nice big star like we are to get those points to nest in there together like that. So this is our first row that we sewed, so we'll put that back. We'll take the next set, and I'm just folding 2 together, bringing them to the sewing machine and sewing them in each row. And the next set in that row. Again, I want to make sure everything's level before I start. Chain piecing again, keeping it going. Fold this back. Fold this back. Okay. Now on this one, these are side pieces that are coming out here. So we want to make sure that we keep our pinwheel in the center going the exact way that we had it. So again, now look at this. I want you guys to notice something. Right here, it looks like these don't match, right? It's supposed to be that way because when we sew the rows together and we take up that 1/4 inch seam, that's what makes the pretty corners, okay? So again, we're gonna flip these over together and we've got a point that needs to match up. So I'm gonna start there first. So right now, each of these seams are going in opposite directions, which is called nesting. So they almost lock in together. And I'm gonna start right there, making sure everything is level before I start sewing, just as a good habit. I put that down and we're gonna make sure everything's level all the way down together. So you see, when we look at this, we're looking at these 2 points to come together. It doesn't matter about this because that's going to be taken up in the seam later and our points are going to come together perfectly. So we're going to put this back where it belongs and we're going to go for the next row. I'll line those up together. Make sure it's nice and straight. And then we are going to feed that right into our machine. On these pieces, we don't have any 2 points coming together. We're going to get the next 2. We're going to line those up. I'm going to bring those together. And again, we're looking for our pinwheel. So here's our center mark. Here's our pinwheel doing exactly what it's supposed to do. We're going to put these together, and again, here's the seam that we're going to worry about. And these two are going to be nesting because when I press them, I did all the pressing to the green side. So I'm going to nest those in together like that. Get it just right there. Straighten up my ends. So if we take a look at the point, this is the point right here that we want to make sure is coming together, and it is coming together perfectly. Okay, we have one more row to do. We're going to grab those pieces. Going to match it up nice and neat. You can tell this is an end row because we have yellow on each side, and we need to make our point coming in the center, and this is a place where we're going to want to match up that point again, right there. So we've got those two pieces coming together very nicely. We're going to hold that there. And sew that 1/4 inch seam. It's a little too far away, so just whoopsie daisy. It's back stitched a little. There we go. You guys, I have new fancy machines as well, but there's just something about sewing on a vintage machine. It's so nostalgic. I wonder who sewed on it, what was made on her, you know, all the things. So there we are. We've got our last row. And now we're going to take 2 rows and put them together. So here is the rows that I picked up, these 2 right here. And I'm going to flip those together and sew them together by just taking the top and rolling it over. Now, here is where I suggest that you pin your rows together. Now, when I first started doing this, I didn't force the seams to go any particular direction, because when I put the rows together, I like to nest them together so I can push the seams where I want them to go at this point. So I'm going to do opposites so that I can nest those seams together nicely. And I don't know where my pins are. I don't even know how that's possible. Hold on, gang. Oops. I'm gonna have to grab us some pins. Okay, back to where we were. I'm gonna nest those seams right there together. This is the part you really don't want to rush through, because this is what brings your entire block together. And always pin through the seam towards where you're about to sew. And I always start with the seams, not the end. Okay. Let's see which way this one wants to go. Let's go on to the next. And if you'd like, you can iron before this step. I just find that I like to choose which way my seams go. And then I'm going to pin the end. And the other end. Now guys, when you're doing this, you may see that you have a little play in one of the blocks. Like right here. See how that has a little bit of play? That it's almost not as, it's almost a little bigger than this square. It happens. What you're gonna do is, when you pin these areas, it's gonna help take up any slack, because face it, it's hard to get them absolutely perfect each and every time. And there is forgiveness when it comes to that. So we're gonna go ahead and sew that whole line. And if your pin is going to go underneath your presser foot, you want to pull it before you get there. But try and wait till the very last second before you do. There we go. We've got our first 2 rows together. There we go. And see how we were being very picky about how we put our seams together. And we're going to go ahead and put the next row on, which is this one. That goes just like this. Okay, so we're going to flip this, and we're going to do exactly what we did before by pinning our seams. Now, when we sewed this line right here, we did determine which way this row of stitches, this row of seams, I'm sorry, is gonna go. So now when we make adjustments, we're gonna leave this exactly as it was when we sewed. You know what? I'm gonna run and press this so you can see it better. Okay, so you can see after I pressed it how this seam is already committed to going this way and this way and this way. So this is why I like to add my rows the way I do, because when I get to putting this on, right, I can go the opposite way of where those seams are going, okay? So this is how I'm going to end up putting them together. So I'm going to run and iron this just so you can see better what we're talking about when we're nesting those seams. So I need to have these all going this direction. Okay. Now I've ironed them to make them go exactly in the opposite direction. So when we pick these two up and put right sides together, when I go to the seam, they're going to lock in place perfectly because they're nesting against each other. So just like we did before, we're going to grab a pin and pin that seam together so it stays that way. So you can see this one's going this way, this one's going that way, and they're nesting together perfectly. Then we're going to go ahead and we're going to do that next seam. And we're going to go ahead and move right on to the next one. Now, as you see, this one's going together much easier because I wasn't being lazy and I went and ironed the seams to make them go the way I wanted them to go. Because after we do that, those first two together, when we're committing to whichever way a seam is going to go, then we just follow suit for each additional row that we add. Okay. So now that is all put together. You can see each seam is going opposite and nesting at the cross point, which is going to make our points look really good once we've sewn them together. Let's take a look. Now I want to make sure that the seam stays. If I just let it roll up underneath there, it'll push it the opposite direction, and I don't want it to do that. So I need to make sure it stayed exactly where I had it. She doesn't like that spot right there, so I'm gonna give her a little help over that hump. Again, we're checking to make sure that seam stays going the way that we decided. I'm gonna make sure that we flip our seam the right way. None of those pins were in the way of my sewing, so. Okay, we just have one more row to add and the whole block is done. And what I love about this block, it looks like you worked so very hard to get it to look like this, and it's really quite easy. So now when we push this one back, look at that center. Look at our pinwheel. Look how beautiful that looks because we took the time to pin the seams, okay? And I am gonna run and I'm gonna iron this one just so we can talk about the seams. I'm gonna get that seam nice and flat for us. Okay guys, here's our last one that we need to add. All of these seams are going in this direction. So to make it easy, I'm going to go iron and make all these seams go this direction so we can pin it together and finish up our row. Here we are again. We've got our last row ready to go, and as you can see, they're all going the opposite way from each other. And we're going to do just what we did the last time by picking this up, putting it together, and pinning the seams together. Always starting with the seams. And they are nesting. We want to make sure we get them nested in there. Moving on to the next one. We also want to make sure that our fabric is even at the top. We want to keep that going too. We can't ignore if we pulled one side too much. And then for our last seam right there, nesting it together, keeping everything straight. Okay, there we go. We're going to sew that last seam together. Checking my seams. Okay, so the ones on the bottom are going this way this time, so it's going to be no problem just to keep going and not having to worry about checking those seams. But we got to make sure the ones on top stay going the way that we had set them to go. Okay, let's take a look, guys. We have finished a LeMoyne Star. It is my all-time favorite block. I love the way it looks. And the great thing is about this, you can start with whatever size square you want to make it whatever size you want. I'm going to run and we're going to iron this. Okay guys, here it is, our finished LeMoyne Star. We started with a 7-inch square to get our block started to make our half square triangles. Our corner squares were 4.5 inches in square. This block ended up being finished 16.5 by 16.5. So it's a very large block. With the LeMoyne Star, you guys, it's so much fun. I would never tire of making this block, especially since I know how to do it the easy way to make it look like I did something hard. Another thing you can go back and do is you can snowball these corners by putting a smaller square, sewing from corner to corner and cutting off the excess and folding it back to give, if you're going to just put these stars together, it will give it a little triangle in between each block. There's so many variations that you can do with this block and they're endless and I love it. I love to make it. I hope you all enjoyed it. I am trying to teach to the newbie, to somebody who doesn't have anybody to teach them like I can teach my girls. So I hope you loved this making the LeMoyne Star today. If you like the content, please like and subscribe. and we'll spend some more time crafting together. And you have a great day.